Welcome back. Before we dive in, take a breath, get comfortable, and let the noise of the day fade out for a moment, because today's stories aren't light and they aren't rushed. They're the kind that sit with you. Our first story begins with a question that sounds simple, almost harmless. But behind it is a weight most people don't see at first glance. A 25-year-old man asks, "Is it wrong that I've decided not to date again until my early or mid-30s?" At face value, it might sound like hesitation, or fear, or maybe even avoidance. But to understand why he's asking, you need to understand what he's survived. Just a month ago, his marriage officially ended. Not because of drifting apart or growing in different directions, but because of repeated betrayal. His wife cheated on him, online and in real life, again and again. They were together for 7 years, yet married for barely 1. And somehow, that single year did more damage than the 7 that came before it. This isn't a story about dating preferences. It's about trust being shattered early, love being rushed, and a young man wondering if stepping away from relationships is wisdom or surrender. Stay with me, because what he's really asking isn't about age at all. It's about whether healing should have a timeline. By the time it was over, his self-esteem was shattered. He admits he doesn't have much dating or sexual experience. He'd only ever been with 2 people. And after the divorce, after everything she put him through, he feels like he can't trust anyone at all. He's in therapy now and has been since summer, when he first discovered the cheating. At that time, he still wanted to fix the marriage. But the reality of those last 2 years tells a much darker story. He worked overnight shifts and snored, so she made him sleep on the couch. When they were intimate, he struggled mentally. He couldn't relax, couldn't connect, sometimes couldn't even climax. Instead of compassion, he was met with anger. She yelled at him. Other times, when he tried to initiate affection, something as small as touching her waist or holding her close, she snapped, accusing him of ignoring her body image issues. Then came the comparisons. She often told him other men would be more grateful, that anyone else would appreciate her more. Conversations about breaking up came up more than once, but they stayed together, convincing themselves that love alone was enough. Then summer hit and everything exploded. She went in for STD testing. At first, it didn't raise alarms, until she came back and told him her rapid test was positive for HIV. That's when the truth poured out. Multiple partners. Affairs happening while he was at work. A completely different life behind his back. Still, he tried. They agreed to therapy. He forced himself to believe her remorse. But trust never came back. And about a month before the divorce, she finally admitted the truth. She'd never stopped seeing other people. She had even been lying during therapy. After the divorce, she immediately started dating one of the men she cheated with. Now he feels empty, disconnected. He doesn't want a relationship. He's just working, trying to make friends for the first time in years, and learning who he even is anymore. A part of him believes that even if the one showed up tomorrow, he'd turn them away without hesitation. His co-workers keep encouraging him to get back out there, even offering to help, but he shuts it down. He's afraid of being hurt again. Right now, he just wants his cat, his peace, and space to heal. Then comes the update. He returns with slightly better news, but the damage is still very real. He recaps everything: the 5 affairs, the HIV scare, the therapy, the lies. By November, the marriage was officially over. The divorce itself was clean. But emotionally, he's wrecked. He avoids his bedroom entirely. He's been diagnosed with major depression. Even though his HIV test came back negative, the fear still lingers because they'd had unprotected sex close to when she tested positive. And worst of all, he feels unlovable. Like he isn't worth choosing. He started medication. He's still in therapy. But he feels helpless. He asks the question so many people ask after betrayal: does this ever get better? How do you trust again? Here's where the advice comes in, and this part matters. First, change your environment. Trauma anchors itself to spaces. Redo the bedroom completely. Paint the walls. Replace the carpet or add a soft rug. Change the curtains. Swap out furniture if you can, even secondhand. Replace the bedding. Get a new headboard if a full bed isn't possible. Make the space unrecognizable. That room should belong to you, not the memories you're trying to survive. Second, understand that what you're experiencing isn't weakness, it's trauma. Ask your therapist about PTSD or trauma-specific treatment. Betrayal on this level often causes dissociation just to get through daily life. When the numbness fades, anger will follow. That's not bad. That's your self-worth waking back up. Third, do not rush healing. Do not date until you feel whole again. Loneliness heals slower when you fill it with the wrong person. Rebuild friendships. Find activities that put you around people. You're young. You still have a long future ahead of you. And yes, it will get better. One day this chapter will be a story you barely recognize. And the most important part? You don't have HIV. That matters more than you realize right now. Now on to the second story. It's titled, What is D-Day Really? A 37-year-old man married for 12 years, together for 16. They met in college. They have a 6-year-old child. They saved for years and finally bought their first home. Things weren't perfect, but they lasted. Until they didn't. He doesn't even know what D-Day means anymore. Was it months ago when something first felt off? Was it last week? Last night? Or maybe today? Maybe D-Day was actually a year ago. It started the way these stories always start. His wife stayed up late texting. She became protective of her phone. Guarded. Secretive. One night, while she was in the shower, he checked. And there it was, flirtatious, bold messages with her coworker, Mark Allen. Not overtly explicit, but charged. No. Confident. A version of her he hadn't seen in years. He confronted her. She denied wrongdoing. Said it was harmless. Turned the blame on him for snooping. A week later, at 5 in the morning, a notification from Jack lit up her locked phone on the nightstand. He didn't confront her. His son was asleep. And he admits he's terrible at confrontation. And that's where this story pauses. Because sometimes D-Day isn't a single moment. Sometimes, it's the slow realization that the life you trusted has been quietly unraveling for a long time. That afternoon, I brought everything to my therapist. I laid it all out, the secrecy, the phone, the gut feeling I couldn't shake. He didn't hesitate. He told me I needed to confront her directly. Ask her what was going on. Ask to see her phone. No dancing around it. So when she got home, I did exactly that. I asked to see her phone. She said no. She told me she was entitled to her privacy. I asked her outright if she'd been talking to him. She downplayed it immediately, said he'd only messaged her 2 or 3 times. I told her I needed to see it. She flipped the script, said I was imagining things, that I needed help, that I had to learn how to get over this. I told her that was fine. I would get help right after I saw her phone. Eventually she gave in. 2 or 3 messages turned into 50, maybe 100, spread out over the last 2 weeks. On the surface they looked harmless. Nothing explosive. Nothing undeniable. But that wasn't the point. She lied. And once trust cracks, even innocent messages don't feel innocent anymore. We went back to counseling. We'd been before, right after our child was born, and stayed for about 6 months. This time, the counselor laid out a clear reconciliation plan. It required 2 things from her. She had to cut off communication with him completely, and divorce had to be taken off the table while we worked on the marriage. She decided she didn't like the counselor anymore. We never went back. Maybe that was D-Day. Or maybe it came later. The next week, she spent the entire morning texting her friends. I noticed she left her phone unlocked and pinned. By then, my suspicion wasn't fading, it was consuming me. When she stepped away for barely 30 seconds, I picked it up and unlocked it just long enough to see she was texting him again. But his name was different now. Alan Hale. I didn't get to read the messages. I confronted her instead. I asked if she was still talking to Jack. She said yes, but insisted it was nothing. Just a friend. She reminded me I'd never explicitly told her to stop talking to him. They worked together, she said. She needed to talk to him. I didn't ask to see the texts again. At that point, I wasn't even sure it would help. Would it change anything? Or just hurt more? Maybe D-Day was last night. She was off all day. Distant. Irritable. Avoiding me. That night, after she fell asleep, I reached for her phone on the nightstand. My heart was pounding. What if she woke up? Why was I doing this? What was I about to find? I tried the pin. Wrong. Too short. She changed it, made it longer. That was it. I gave up and went to sleep on the couch. She came downstairs later and asked if I was okay. I told her I had a headache, which was true, and felt nauseous, which was also true. She asked if I had a fever, if it was COVID. I told her it was just a sinus headache. She asked me to come back to bed. Asked me what was wrong. I told her I thought she was having an affair. She said she would never do that. Asked if this was about that other guy. I asked her why she flirted with him. She smiled and said, because it's fun. That's where it ended. My head was splitting. I told her I needed to sleep. And that's when it hit me. Today was D-Day. I was exhausted, emotionally wrecked, physically drained, tired of the drip-feed truth, tired of the phone being treated like a nuclear launch code, tired of constantly feeling paranoid and still somehow always being half right. I hate confrontation. I don't know what to say when she gets home. I just want the nightmare to stop. Here's the hard truth. Right now she's having her cake and eating it too. She has stability at home, shared bills, shared chores, shared parenting, and excitement on the side. What you're describing isn't just friendship. It's an emotional affair. And when coworkers are involved, emotional affairs very often become physical. This has likely been going on for a year. It can't continue. You need an exit strategy. You need legal advice. This will not magically fix itself. That means lining up a support network for when things get overwhelming, securing important documents and sentimental items, closing or freezing joint accounts that could generate debt, gathering evidence, screenshotting messages, preparing yourself mentally. Because after a year of this, what's on that phone will hurt worse than you expect. Then you separate. You take time. You decide what you want, not based on fear but based on her actions and your values. And you don't stay passive. You keep things moving legally and practically because seriousness matters. Update 1. I sat her down and told her I was ready to move on. I wanted a divorce. She laughed it off at first. Said this was ridiculous. Said there was nothing going on with her coworker. She offered to show me the text. I agreed, but I was skeptical. Messages can be deleted easily. What I saw wasn't explosive, but it wasn't okay either. She messaged him constantly. He flirted relentlessly. On Thanksgiving, she told him the turkey was in the oven. He replied, "That's so hot." A week ago, she told him she was having another drink because it had been a long day. He replied, "I'm so turned on right now." I was stuck in limbo. The behavior was inappropriate. The secrecy was undeniable. The gaslighting was real. But there was no single message that screamed, "Gotcha." She wasn't explicitly flirting back, but she wasn't shutting it down either. She begged me to reconsider. I said no. She begged again. No. Over and over, no. Finally, she asked for 2 counseling sessions. I agreed, but only 2. Update 2. She continued acting like nothing was wrong. Overly affectionate. Constantly wanting closeness. Angry when I pulled away. When she asked if I thought she was cheating, I said yes. She said she was insulted. Said she didn't understand why I couldn't trust her. I told her why. Because she lied. Because she deleted messages. Because she treated this friendship like something sacred while dismissing my pain. She cried. Said she didn't deserve this since there was no proof beyond emotional betrayal. So I gave her one last chance to come clean. 2 conditions. Non-negotiable. First, all contact with the affair partner ends. Second, full phone transparency. Every message. No exceptions. And that's where the story stands. Because sometimes the biggest lesson isn't about catching someone. It's about realizing how much truth you've already been forced to swallow just to keep the peace. At first, she agreed to the conditions. Or at least she said she did. Not long after, she quietly reversed course on both of them. She never stopped texting him. She insists it's just friendly, but at the same time she refuses to let me see a single message. Her phone might as well be locked in a vault. That contradiction told me everything I needed to know. By Friday I'd had enough. I reached out to a divorce lawyer and scheduled a consultation for later this month. Part of me hoped I'd stumble across something more concrete than flirtatious texts. I live in an at-fault state and proof would matter during separation. I also debated whether to tell the affair partner's spouse. I didn't have hard evidence, just patterns, lies, and inappropriate behavior. Still, sometimes silence does more damage than truth. At this point, I was done. The marriage was already over and everything but paperwork. Update 3. After my last update, the advice was nearly unanimous. Stop tiptoeing and start being direct. I'd already retained a lawyer and begun preparing divorce documents. In the meantime, I contacted the affair partner's spouse. I told her only what I knew, nothing speculative. I wanted her to draw her own conclusions and I wanted to protect myself legally. She handled it with grace. She took the information seriously, expressed concern for my situation, and admitted she didn't yet know how to approach her husband. She thanked me for being honest. I wished her well. My wife found out almost immediately. She exploded. She accused me of sabotaging their marriage, destroying her friendship, and even threatening her job. Then she pivoted and said she didn't recognize me anymore, that she was worried about my mental health. Ironically, I'd been calmer than I'd ever been. I'd started practicing the divorce 180, no emotional engagement, no defending myself, no chasing explanations. I told her I understood she was upset, but the conversation was over. I did what I did. I wasn't taking it back. After that, she began coming home from work in tears, claiming rumors were spreading and blaming me. I hadn't spoken to anyone at her workplace. If gossip was circulating, it wasn't coming from me, it was coming from the man she was defending. Then she dropped another bombshell. She told me she'd spoken to the affair partner and that they planned to reconcile their marriage. She asked me to stop communicating with his spouse. By then we were fully on the divorce track. That's when her behavior shifted from defensive to openly hostile. She became petty and vindictive. She insulted me, called me lazy, apathetic, a liar. She claimed she was the only one who ever cared and said I was a monster for breaking up someone else's marriage, completely contradicting her earlier claims that nothing inappropriate had happened. Shortly after, the affair partner's spouse sent me one final message. If I had seen what you saw, I would have told you too. You have nothing to apologize for. I saved that message and forwarded it to my lawyer. Honestly, the more my wife reacted, the easier my decision became. She was revealing who she really was when control slipped away. The manipulation, the gaslighting, the blame shifting, it was all on full display. Instead of reacting emotionally, I stayed patient and observant, and that seemed to deflate her even more. All the energy I once spent trying to make her happy, by doing the impossible, started going somewhere else, into my relationship with my son. And that relationship has grown more in these months than it ever had before. I won't lie, I'm exhausted, mentally drained, completely worn down by months of lies and half-truths. The idea of getting through the holidays under the same roof with someone so bitter doesn't thrill me, but I keep reminding myself, this is temporary. Final update. Here are the basics. I'm 37. She's 37. Married 12 years, together 16. We have one child, 6 years old. We bought a house 2 years ago. I made a mistake and pulled money from my 401k for the down payment. We both work, both earn well, but we have very little savings. I pay the bills, mortgage, utilities, insurance, education savings. She handles groceries and health insurance. Right now, we're in limbo, waiting until after the holidays to change living arrangements. I'm improving, slowly but steadily. She isn't. She alternates between asking me to reconsider and blaming me for everything. Holding that line, staying firm while being accused, is the hardest part. My circle is small now. I'm in therapy. I'm trying to make this process as painless as possible, even though I know pain is relative. I could probably afford the house on my own, but it would be tight. Selling is an option, but repairs are needed, especially the roof. Nothing about this is simple anymore. She suggested a cohabitation divorce. Legally separated, maybe even divorced, but still living together for our son. I'm not convinced that's healthy. Limbo has a cruelty of its own. Here's what I've learned, what actually matters. Indifference is power. Honesty beats hope when hope is built on lies. And children don't need perfect families, They need emotionally safe parents. My focus is my son. Time with him. Memories with him. Stability for him. I don't sit down to talk with her unless it's necessary. I gave her the chance to be honest. She chose secrecy. If she had loved me the way I loved her, we wouldn't be standing here. This hurts deeply, but it's survivable. And one day this chapter won't define me, will explain me. If you were in my place, what would you do next? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this resonate with you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Dark Infidelity Stories. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next.